Imagine you are married for 7 years, and you believe you are living a happy and stable relationship. One fine day, you decide to grab a coffee after a morning run in the park, and, unexpectedly, your life turns upside down. By accidentally glancing through the window, you see your wife, not alone, but accompanied by a very familiar figure, your own boss. They are laughing and sharing a moment that clearly should not belong to them. What would you do upon witnessing the person you love on a romantic date with someone else? And worse, with someone so close to you. This is Jack's story, who, faced with betrayal and disgust, carves out a path of revenge and discoveries, leading to a truly shocking conclusion. As he approached that cozy cafe that had often piqued his curiosity during his runs, Jack felt compelled to enjoy a moment of rest. It was a spontaneous choice, perhaps motivated by the soft glow of the morning sun or the inviting aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting in the air. He ordered his coffee, a double espresso, strong and without sugar, just as he liked it. And as he waited, he allowed himself to relax and observe the people around him, a rare pause in his ever-rushed routine. While absorbing the tranquility of the moment, his eyes inadvertently wandered to the neighboring bar, a vibrant contrast to the calm atmosphere of the cafe. There, life seemed to pulse at a different, more intense and colorful rhythm. And it was in this setting that Jack caught sight of Evelyn, not alone as he would expect on a Saturday morning, but accompanied. By her side, in close proximity, was his boss, a man Jack knew not only professionally, but as a trusted friend. They shared an intimate smile, one of those smiles not given casually, accompanied by a look that Jack recognized as one of complicity and affection, the kind he had not received from Evelyn in a long time. The scene before his eyes triggered an internal storm of emotions within Jack. Initial confusion quickly turned into painful clarity as the pieces began to fall into place. He tried to avert his gaze, tried to convince himself that he was mistaken, but the truth was undeniable and cutting like the cold of winter. For a moment he was paralyzed, the coffee forgotten in his hand, as the reality of his situation settled upon him like a heavy veil, obscuring the light of day and changing everything he thought he knew about his life and his marriage. In that critical moment, as he watched Evelyn and his boss through the bar's fogged window, Jack felt a crushing weight in his chest. He realized that the laughter and gestures between them were of an intimacy that transcended mere friendship or a professional relationship. Seeing his wife, the woman with whom he shared his life and dreams, laughing and touching another man with such familiarity, triggered an avalanche of conflicting emotion. The pain of betrayal was like a sharp blade, cutting with each loving gesture he observed. With his mind spinning amidst the shock, Jack struggled to process what his eyes saw. He had left home that morning without suspecting anything, merely seeking the serenity of his usual run, and now he was faced with a scene that threatened to crumble his world. The irony of finding himself in this situation while doing something as routine and comforting as grabbing a coffee after a run did not escape him. He stood there, motionless, his heart racing, while his mind worked frenetically in search of a logical explanation that could deny the scene of infidelity before his eyes. Jack knew that confronting Evelyn and his boss in that public moment could lead to an undesired spectacle, so with superhuman effort, he withdrew. He stored the pain and anger that simmered within him, opting for a plan that involved more observation and less immediate confrontation. He had decided that, before any rash action, he needed concrete evidence and a well-articulated plan. After all, if he was about to crumble his own world and possibly that of others, he would need to be grounded in an indisputable truth, not just the pain and anger of the moment. In the days following the discovery at the cafe, Jack maintained a facade of normality toward Evelyn and the world around him. Inside, however, he was boiling with a whirlwind of strategies and emotions. He knew that acting impulsively could result in more harm than solutions, so he opted for caution and meticulousness. He spent hours at night researching and planning, consumed by the need to fully understand the situation before taking any definitive action. To do this, Jack contacted a private detective recommended by a friend who had gone through a similar situation. He explained his suspicions and provided photos of Evelyn and his boss, requesting discreet monitoring. The detective initiated surveillance, tracking Evelyn's movements, documenting encounters, and collecting messages exchanged between her and his boss. Jack demanded precise details and incontrovertible evidence that could be used effectively in any future confrontation or legal proceedings. He wanted more than mere allegations. He sought a complete dossier that would reveal the extent of the betrayal. Meanwhile, Jack struggled to maintain his normal work performance and social interactions, despite the emotional turmoil unfolding within. He avoided deep conversations with Evelyn, fearing that his anger would show through and destroy his cover before the investigations were complete. Each look, each touch from her became a test of his acting and self-control. Inside, he was fragmented, but outwardly he was the picture of composure. A man no one could suspect was about to unravel such an intimate and personal case of betrayal. As he accumulated the necessary evidence, Jack also began to devise a meticulous plan that went beyond simply confronting Evelyn and his boss. He desired to create an impact that was both personal and professional, a revenge that would reverberate across all spheres of the lives of those involved. Jack leveraged his inside knowledge of the company he worked for to architect a series of subtle traps designed to expose his boss's flaws and incompetencies before colleagues and superiors. For example, Jack began manipulating circumstances so that his boss would receive incomplete or mistaken information about important projects. He subtly altered emails and reports, inserting small errors that would go unnoticed at first glance, but which accumulated, would raise questions about the boss's competence and attention to detail. Each meticulously planned error was a piece in his chess game, where Jack moved the pieces with surgical precision, never raising suspicions of his own involvement in the errors. Furthermore, Jack utilized internal contact networks to spread rumors and insinuations that questioned his boss's integrity and character. He did this with great caution, using trusted intermediaries and never directly involving himself in the conversation. These seeds of doubt, once planted, began to germinate, causing even previously neutral colleagues to see his boss in a less favorable light. Each of Jack's steps was calculated to maximize the damage, without putting himself at risk, turning his revenge into a Machiavellian work of art. He not only sought justice for his personal suffering, he wanted to ensure that his boss felt the weight of the disrespect and betrayal that Jack had felt, but on a much more public and humiliating scale. The company's annual party was approaching, and Jack knew it would be the perfect stage for his grand revelation. He had planned every detail with relentless precision, ensuring the impact would be devastating. The party would be filled with executives, colleagues, and influential guests, all the ideal audiences to witness his boss's downfall. On the big day, Jack arrived at the event with a calm demeanor, but inside, he was filled with intense anticipation. He had with him a remote control that would initiate the projected video, containing all the evidence of encounters and messages between Evelyn and his boss. Jack strategically positioned himself in the main hall, where he knew he would have everyone's attention at the crucial moment. When the moment came, with a simple press of a button, the lights went out, and the video began projecting on a large screen. The images were clear, and the messages were indisputable. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Shocked murmurs and incredulous looks turned toward Jack's boss, and then to Evelyn, who was also present. The humiliation was palpable, with the boss unable to speak or even move, paralyzed under the weight of his own shame. Jack observed it all from his corner, feeling a complex mixture of triumph and sadness. As he watched careers being destroyed in front of everyone, he knew he had achieved what he had planned, but at the same time, he felt an emptiness. Revenge did not bring back the trust he had in his wife, nor did it erase the pain of betrayal. However, he felt he had restored a sense of justice, at least in the eyes of observers, definitively marking the end of a painful chapter in his life. After the dramatic revelation at the party, Jack's life entered a new phase of introspection and reconstruction. The revenge had been consummated, but it left in its wake an emotional void and a series of restless nights. The images from that night replayed in his mind, not with a sense of triumph, but as a painful reminder of everything he had lost. The reality of separation and betrayal began to weigh heavier than the sweet taste of any retribution. Jack found himself confronting a self-imposed isolation, a reflection of the bridges he burned and the relationships he sacrificed on the altar of revenge. He noticed a growing distance between himself and his colleagues at work, many of whom were uncomfortable with the extent of his retaliation. They respected his pain but questioned the intensity of his response. This alienation only reinforced the loneliness Jack felt, a loneliness that extended beyond the professional environment and seeped into his social interactions. Amidst this turmoil, Jack began to question the nature and price of revenge. He reflected on whether the destruction he caused others was truly worth restoring his own sense of justice. Revenge had changed the image others had of him, and perhaps more painfully, the image he had of himself. He began to realize that while focused on making others pay, he himself had paid an immeasurable price in terms of inner peace and happiness. This introspection led Jack to seek professional help. He began attending therapy to deal with the betrayal and its emotional consequences. Each session was a step towards untangling the complex threads of his emotions and rebuilding his identity, which had been so profoundly shaken by recent events. It was a slow and often painful process, but necessary for him to begin healing the wounds left by the storm of his own creation. As Jack grappled internally with the consequences of his actions, Evelyn faced her own emotional and practical battle. She was deeply shaken by how everything had unfolded. The public exposure of her affair and the subsequent destruction of her marriage had led her to a state of deep reflection and regret. She felt the loss not only of her husband, but also of the life they had built together. The scandal had been a rude awakening to the consequences of her choices. In the solitude of her nights, Evelyn reconsidered every decision that led to her clandestine rendezvous with her boss. She repeatedly asked herself what she could have done differently, what she could have said to prevent things from reaching such a point. Guilt consumed her, and she recognized that her actions had not only hurt Jack, but also herself and everyone around her. Determined to seek some form of redemption, or at least better understand her own motivations, Evelyn also sought therapeutic help. She began attending regular sessions, where she explored the reasons behind her infidelity and worked to rebuild her shattered self-esteem. The process was painful but necessary. She learned about vulnerability, boundaries, and the importance of honest communication in relationships. In parallel, Evelyn attempted to reconnect with Jack, not to rekindle the marriage, but to offer a sincere apology and explain her actions in person, hoping it could bring some relief for them both. She knew Jack was hurt, and that the trust between them had been irreparably broken, but she needed him to know that she truly regretted the pain she had caused. In the weeks following the explosive conclusion at the company party, Jack's boss faced a deep and humiliating downfall. The impact of having his private life exposed in such a manner was devastating. Beyond losing his job, he found himself socially isolated, as friends and colleagues quickly distanced themselves, not wanting to be associated with someone embroiled in a scandal of such magnitude. His professional reputation, painstakingly built over the years, crumbled within a matter of days. Jack's boss's financial situation also quickly deteriorated. Unable to find work in his field, Due to his tarnished reputation, he was forced to sell his home and many of his valuable possessions to maintain some semblance of financial stability. This material loss only compounded his anguish and the feeling of despair that was beginning to take hold. Confronted with these harsh realities, he began reflecting on his own choices and the role he played in the destruction of his life and those around him. In a moment of introspection, he realized how blindly he had followed his desires without considering the consequences for himself and others. This realization led him to seek psychological help in dealing with the depression and anxiety that arose after the scandal. Therapy proved to be a crucial space for him to confront his failures and begin the slow process of rebuilding his integrity and life. He learned the importance of personal accountability and began to repair the damage caused, reaching out to those he had wronged to offer his sincere apologies. While some received his words with disdain, others saw in them a genuine desire for change, offering him a glimmer of hope amidst his emotional turmoil. As Jack found a new direction in his life through writing and speaking engagements, he realized the profound impact his story had on others. His book not only detailed the painful events and choices that led to the scandal, but also offered an introspective perspective on the lessons learned and the subsequent emotional journey. It tackled complex themes such as forgiveness, resilience, and the pursuit of redemption, touching the hearts of many who had faced similar situations of betrayal and personal conflict. The book's success catapulted Jack into a new stardom, but this time as a respected author and motivational speaker. He was frequently invited to speak at events, seminars, and television programs, where he shared his insights on overcoming personal adversities. People were drawn to the candor with which he approached difficult subjects, and his ability to openly discuss his failures and triumphs created a genuine connection with his audience. This new career allowed Jack a platform to promote positive change. He established foundations that helped people going through personal and professional crises, using a portion of his book's profits to fund counseling and support programs. Through these initiatives, he not only helped others, but also found a sense of purpose that had been lacking in his life during his darkest moments. Each lecture and chapter he wrote were steps in his healing journey. Jack discovered that by helping others, he was also helping himself, confronting and dismantling the layers of pain and regret that still resided within him. His work became a powerful testament to the power of vulnerability and personal transformation. At that readers' meeting where Jack met the woman who would become his new partner, an immediate connection formed between them. She had been one of the many who were moved by his story, but there was something unique in her approach. During the Q&A session, she shared her own experience of overcoming adversity, which captured Jack's attention for its sincerity and strength. The conversation they had after the event revealed a series of coincidences and shared worldviews that quickly drew them closer. She, his boss's younger sister, had her own reservations and internal conflicts about her brother, whose actions she had never approved of. This mutual understanding of the complexities of human relationships and the pain caused by those close to them created a solid common ground for them to build a relationship upon. As they discovered more about each other's journeys, Jack felt for the first time in a long while that he may have found someone who truly understood the depths of his pain and his desire for renewal. They began meeting regularly, exploring not only their personal stories, but also their dreams and aspirations for the future. The relationship blossomed based on a profound understanding and a rare honesty. Jack, who had closed his heart to love, thinking it impossible to trust again, found in her understanding and support a new hope. Together, they navigated the sometimes turbulent waters of a new relationship, learning from each other and growing together. Jack realized that, although the past still echoed in his memory, the present offered him a chance to write a new story, a story of healing, love, and rediscovery. alongside someone who not only understood him, but also shared the desire to leave the past behind and build something new and beautiful. As Jack and his new companion deepened their relationship, they explored together the paths of forgiveness and new beginnings. Jack gradually realized that, despite all the scars he carried, his heart was slowly opening again to love and trust. Each encounter and conversation between them reinforced the idea that true love could blossom even after the deepest wounds. They spent long hours sharing stories of their lives, dreams that had been delayed, and lessons learned from adversity. These moments together were a balm for Jack's old wounds, showing him that life still held moments of joy and genuine connection. The woman by his side not only understood his pain, but also shared her own vulnerability, further strengthening the bond between them. Jack began including his partner in speaking and writing activities, where they co-created workshops on overcoming adversity and building resilience. Together, they formed a powerful team, using their experiences to help others face and overcome their own hardships. The collaborative work not only enriched their relationship, but also gave them a shared purpose, uniting them in a mission of healing and inspiration. This new phase of Jack's life was marked by a constant learning about giving and receiving love in a healthy, sustainable way. He discovered that true strength did not lie in erecting walls around the heart, but in allowing oneself to be vulnerable with someone who deeply respected and cared for his soul. By his side, he had someone who helped him see that the future could be as bright as they chose to build it together. As Jack began finding a new direction and purpose in his life, Evelyn was embarking on her own process of personal reconstruction in another city. After the scandal, she realized she needed a fresh start, away from the memories and judgments that surrounded her in her old environment. The change of location was part of her effort to redefine her life and regain some sense of control and autonomy. The decision to move to a new city came with its own challenges. Evelyn faced the difficulty of adapting to a new setting while carrying the weight of her past. However, she found strength in the opportunity for a fresh beginning where no one knew her history. She dedicated herself to building a new network of professional and personal contacts, trying to place emphasis on who she wanted to become, not who she had been. Professionally, Evelyn chose to work as a freelance consultant, giving her flexibility and the chance to apply her skills without being directly under the public scrutiny of a traditional corporate environment. She specialized in projects that promoted female empowerment and ethical leadership, areas that became important to her as part of her own process of redemption and self-improvement. Outside of work, Evelyn engaged in community activities that helped her build a new social circle. She participated in book clubs, yoga classes, and volunteering initiatives. Each new activity was a step in her journey to rebuild her identity and self-esteem, away from the mistakes she had made. This new phase of her life was not easy, and often the solitude of her new path weighed heavily upon her. However, Evelyn was determined to face these challenges, learning to live with regret and work towards a better version of herself, one she could look back on without shame, but with the understanding that each step was part of necessary growth. Jack found a new sense of purpose in sharing his experience through public speaking and became an inspirational figure for many. He spoke with a passion about the importance of forgiveness that could only come from someone who had faced great personal challenges. At one particularly impactful conference, he discussed how forgiveness was not just a gift we give to others, but an essential release for ourselves. He explained that holding on to anger and resentment could poison the soul, while forgiveness lifted a weight, allowing movement toward a more promising future. During these conferences, Jack used his personal story as a testimony to the power of forgiveness, even after the most painful betrayal. He openly shared the details of his internal struggle to reach the point of being able to forgive Evelyn and his boss, emphasizing that forgiveness did not mean forgetting or approving of the actions, but rather choosing to release oneself from the cycle of pain and anguish. In addition to the lectures, Jack also participated in panels and workshops where he collaborated with psychologists and relationship experts to discuss practical strategies for facing and overcoming betrayals. These events were enriched with questions and interactions from the audience, many of whom shared their own experiences and sought advice. Jack's ability to connect with his audience and offer real heartfelt guidance transformed him into a respected thought leader in the area of emotional and personal recovery. This part of his journey was not just about healing others. Each story shared and each session helped Jack solidify his own healing. He began to see his past experience not as a scar, but as a valuable asset he could use to help others find peace and the strength to move forward. The surprise of seeing Evelyn at one of his lectures was a major test for Jack. After the presentation, as the crowd dispersed, Evelyn approached him hesitantly, clearly nervous but determined to speak. Jack, though surprised, maintained his composure. He listened to her with a calm he did not know he possessed, attuned to her words, which were laden with remorse and sincerity. Evelyn explained how she had been touched by his words about forgiveness and how it made her realize the depth of her own mistake. She expressed profound sadness, not only for what she had done, but also for the pain she had caused Jacko. Her apology came with no expectations. It was merely a desire to voice the remorse she felt and perhaps find some form of forgiveness, not to rekindle their marriage, but to heal some of the open wounds they both still carried. Jack listened, remembering the days when the pain seemed unbearable. He knew Evelyn too had gone through her own journey of self-reflection and growth. Seeing her vulnerability and hearing her apology brought a flood of conflicting emotions. On one hand, the anger and betrayal still cast long shadows. On the other, his personal journey towards understanding forgiveness made him consider what it truly meant to leave the past behind. After the conversation, Jack was left with much to ponder. He wondered if fully forgiving Evelyn was possible, or even desirable. He recognized that perhaps this encounter was a necessary step for them both, a means to find a truer closure than any confrontation or revenge could have provided. Following his conversation with Evelyn, Jack spent several sleepless nights in deep reflection. The interaction had reopened some old wounds, but also offered a new perspective on the situation. He considered Evelyn's words at length and his own internal responses to them. As he pondered forgiveness and what it truly meant to him, Jack found himself facing an emotional dilemma. Continue carrying the weight of the past, or finally let it go? During this period of introspection, Jack found invaluable support in his new partner, who demonstrated extraordinary understanding and empathy. She not only listened to his internal conflicts with patience, but also shared her own experiences and insights into overcoming personal challenges. Her presence was a constant reminder that love and trust were still possible after betrayal. Influenced by these conversations, Jack began to see forgiveness not just as an act of forgetting, but as a conscious decision not to allow past grievances to govern his future. He recognized that forgiving Evelyn might not mean reconciliation or restoration of their relationship, but rather a vital step towards his own peace of mind and emotional freedom. With a clearer mind, Jack decided to write a response to Evelyn. In his letter, he expressed gratitude for her honesty and for taking the step to apologize. He explained that, although there was still pain, he was choosing to forgive her, not for her sake, but for his own, as part of his path to healing. This decision not only marked a turning point in his emotional recovery, but also helped him reaffirm his commitment to his journey of growth and well-being. With time and acceptance, Jack found a new serenity. He had learned to live with the past, not as a burden, but as a series of events that shaped, but did not define, who he was as a person. The decision to forgive and the choice to move forward allowed him to open up to new possibilities and experiences. Alongside his new partner, he explored life with a renewed sense of purpose and joy. Together they traveled, attended cultural events, and explored new hobbies, each activity strengthening the bond between them and reaffirming their mutual commitment to supporting one another. These shared experiences were essential for Jack, helping him see that life could be rich and fulfilling after trauma. Professionally, Jack continued to expand his role as a speaker and writer. His book and lectures not only continued to inspire those facing adversity, but also became a platform to discuss broader themes of mental health, resilience, and recovery. His voice became an important influence in the wellness community, and he was frequently invited to collaborate on initiatives aimed at helping others overcome their own struggles. At home, Jack and his companion created a welcoming and healing space, where friends and family felt welcome to share their own stories. This environment became a sanctuary not just for them, but also for those in their community seeking solace and understanding. Jack realized that his greatest achievement was not revenge, but the ability to transform his pain into a force for good, positively impacting the lives of many. Jack's story is a powerful reminder that even in the depths of despair, we can find the strength to transform our pain into something positively transformative for both ourselves and those around us. And you, what would you do in Jack's place? Comment on what you would do, and don't forget to like and subscribe to keep following more stories like this one. See you in a new story.